Hello, and welcome to the Dash Force News Free Amigos podcast. And today is a very, very special episode because we're joined by a special guest, Ben Swann. Hi, Ben. How's it going?
Great. I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. And of course, my two fellow amigos, Joel. How are you doing?
Yo, yo, yo.
And Brian, aka Mastermind. How are you doing, Brian?
Hey now.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure, you could very well differentiate between Amigos and guests this week based on background lighting. It looks like we have the menacing floating head from Dear Mr. Swann over there, and the rest of us have our windows open and everything.
Yeah.
You guys are so brightly lit, and I'm so hidden away in my cave.
So Ben, you've recently just come back from an Acapulco, right? So that we've seen so many video interviews with you just popping up on YouTube, with people typically asking the same questions over and over again. But what was the sentiment actually like there on the ground, just from the typical people? Was it a good time? Was it what you expected?
Yeah, it was what I expected. I think what's interesting is I've spoken a lot at different events over the years, right? Whether they be crypto events, or more often it was like libertarian events, political gatherings, rallies, things like that. What was different about this was I felt like there was a lot of those same kind of liberty-minded people who have now congregated into this space. And I don't think it's a surprise to anyone to say that a lot of folks who were in the liberty movement, especially in the US, but really around the world, were kind of the first adopters of crypto. And so it's not surprising to see it. And yet it's a little bit interesting because the people you might see at those events 2 years ago, even just 1 year ago, the events are so much bigger than they were. There's so many more people involved in them, and the backgrounds are kind of more varied than they used to be. So I think that was a little bit surprising. But it was just an amazing time, great chance. I actually lost my voice there. We did so many interviews and so many one-on-one conversations with people that I keynoted. My address was at 11 o'clock in the morning, and we literally stayed talking to people until 11 o'clock at night. It was pretty crazy.
Pulling in 12-hour days for Dash is pretty good, also known as a late day for one of the three Amigos. But yes, good for you earning your treasury's worth.
That's right. No, it was fantastic. And I think one of the cool things about it was, people coming over, because we talked about it in the address, we talked about it at the keynote, which is, Dash giving me the opportunity to do what no one's ever done before. I mean, really, I think that event, even though in my mind I know that what we're doing is pioneering something totally new, it's starting to dawn on me how big this really is. The opportunity to be able to decentralize media is just a crazy idea, and so excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, they didn't always have the crypto part of it. I think that's fairly new. Last year, I think they started. Now it's like a whole day, or it's almost going to become a whole week just crypto alone.
Yeah, I think last year they said they had about 500 people. This year it was between 1,500 and 2,000 who showed up. So it's all kind of this crypto mindset. Somebody came up to me and they said, "Why are you at an anarchist conference?" And I said, "Well, it's also a crypto conference." And they said, "But it's an anarchist conference." And I said, "It's a crypto conference."
Yes, I vote to rebrand Dash to Anarcho Dash.
There you go.
Just shut everyone up.
Yeah, because you know how great the branding for anarchist is. Even though I do, by the way, consider myself to be anarchist in philosophy, not in practicality. Mm-hmm. That's a longer discussion, maybe for a longer day. Not in practicality, but just in terms of philosophy.
So did any networking opportunities come out of that? Did you meet anyone? Or not just in Acapulco, since you've relaunched, has anyone reached out to you on a professional networking level, or any opportunities arisen since you've come back? Oh,
I mean, I hear from people every day, and talk about even people in the industry. Absolutely. I have a lot of people who have reached out to me who are cinematographers, who are video editors, who are journalists. I have people from CNN who have contacted me and said, "What you're doing is amazing, and we'd like to jump ship and come over there." So yeah, I'm hearing from a lot of people. I mean, again, it's hard for me to adequately describe how stunning this is. within the marketplace of media. I ran into a friend on Sunday. I was talking to her, and she works for a huge TV station, one of the largest TV stations in America, local TV station, and said to me, "Hey, you know, we heard about what you're doing." And she says, my co-anchor was talking to me, because her co-anchor is very into crypto. She is too. She owns Bitcoin. And she says, my co-anchor said to me, this guy is doing what is the future, and we all need to be doing this. And she's like, he was saying how he wishes he could go and do the same thing that you're doing right now. So yeah, I mean, I've heard from journalists in TV stations around the country, as I said, from actual networks. And then we have a lot of just that's separate from the crypto. We've also just in relaunching Reality Check and the content that's out there. I mean, we're getting a whole set of syndicators who now want to run the content on their platforms. And you guys are going to be seeing that within the next week to 2 weeks. I mean, these are massive entities that want to carry it. So it's pretty exciting.
You're getting all over the place. Now, one thing I noticed that in the early days of crypto, it was all about Bitcoin donations. You put up your QR code, you put up your address, people send stuff to that. And when I shared your video from yesterday in the our Bitcoin subreddit, which is the notoriously censored one still that, you know, it hates other currencies, someone left a meme said, despite the powered by Dash thing, like it was a really good thing. And then they wanted to send you Bitcoin, but they want to send it to a SegWit address only. But aside from that, have you had any success in getting either donations or in getting Steam and DTube revenue from doing this? Has that been at all something that's happened?
So we are getting some Steam revenue because we're on DTube and we're on. So those are starting to pick up a little bit. And I've had people who have actually recommended you need to put up those QR addresses and post them on your site and post them in different places so people can donate. Been a little bit slow about doing that because, especially with the sponsorship, the most important thing that we've run into is just getting content out on time. So the big thing to me was I did not want to say, because as you guys know, in seeing the proposal, I gave specific dates when everything's going to be delivered, right? The deliverables in terms of the content, when it comes out, the day it comes out, it's all in there. So that the most important thing to me was we get all that going and rolling first, and then we work the other stuff.
I've been very impressed. I had a sneak peek at your DTube profile and subscribed earlier on today, and you're getting lots of hits, you're getting lots of upvotes, so you're doing incredibly well because the algorithms in DTube aren't as good as YouTube. They've tried to replicate the interface. It's still not quite there yet. However, you've already built up quite a big following and all your videos getting upvotes, and that's so important to have because although your real strong point is, I think we both agree, is Facebook, because that's where you're absolutely killing it right now. It's important to have these backup ones because we never know when that censorship monster Google might creep up with YouTube. So like we need to utilize all the platforms, decentralize everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And eventually get to the point where we're building our own platform. And that's eventually what I want to do. That's where I want to be, is where we eventually build it out ourselves. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, getting it on as many platforms as possible, in front of as many people as possible, I think it's critical.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people have been doing, a lot of new media type people have been leveraging crypto for that for a long time, but they've done a little bit more of a difficult way of just having their YouTube show and then having some sponsors. Hey, you like me? Donate. And then hustling to put out like extra content, just trying to just work it all the time. And even on Steemit, which is done pretty well, I've noticed some of the bloggers have a very certain kind of style, of very personal style, low content style, and high volume style, and very insular, like post about Steemit on Steemit do really well. And just the trying to monetize it is just this, it's not just a do my job well kind of thing. It's just it's like working so hard to sort of game the system to make a living. And in my experience, being able to work for Dash allows that same cool decentralized funding model, but you can actually just get a job, so you don't have to worry so much about eat what you kill all the time. You can actually focus on doing your best work.
Right. And that's, again, the most difficult thing about this project so far has been making sure that we are able to replicate the quality of professional broadcasting. And so we have to be able to do that. It's so important. I will tell you this, I've had a couple of people who I've worked with in the past at my most recent station who have reached out to me since we started doing it and said, man, your stuff's looks better now than it did when you were over here. And so, and we're not even done yet, guys. We're still working to get into our permanent studio. And that's even going to happen in 2 phases because of this little thing that's happened with Dash, where we've seen depreciation take place over the last few months. And so really what we started the proposal at, we've never seen since it's come in. We have not seen Dash at that level. So, it's been a matter of making sure that, again, we deliver on what we promised to deliver with the level of quality that we promised. And so, making all that stuff happen is really important. But it's exciting when professional people in this industry look at you and say, man, you're killing it with that content. It looks great.
Yeah. Well, not just that. If you just made the point about the funding thing, and I had a proposal in during the same time period as well. And both of us had to deal with, all of a sudden our budget's got a major slash. And what are you going to do? Just ask for the network for more money before you deliver anything? Or are you actually going to just try to deliver but poor content? Or do you somehow pull out that miracle and make sure it works despite, being on a shoestring budget in that case?
Right. And I wish, again, in our case, I wish that we had everything that I've wanted to have in terms of the look and the set itself and the studio that we're building. And we're just not there yet. But the great thing is I've been able to work with really good people to say, okay, so this is what we've got. Now, how do we make sure that this is, again, to the level of quality that it needs to be? And so far it's been working. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the Anarchapulco thing again. As far as I know, that video has not been released, right? Do you know if they plan to release all those or?
That's a great question. I actually contacted them this week because I got a thank you email from them and said, hey, what's the deal with this? And how do we get a copy of the video? And the response was that they're being sold right now. So they're supposed to find out what they can do in terms of the speakers and getting us copies of it. So the only copy I have was a friend of mine was shooting it on an iPhone, but the audio is not great, right? So hopefully we get it soon. And if not, then I'll go to some other events and speak there and do the same address and we'll get it recorded the right way, even if they don't release it.
Yeah, I think in the future, we need to set something up because we were like a platinum sponsor or something like that. They should have like, if you're a sponsor and your people, you should be able to get your own video or something.
Right. And they did they had a great setup in terms of the tech that they had there and the cameras they were using, the way they were shooting it. So I know they've got, unless something wiggy happened, they've got, really pristine copies of it. And they told me they're selling it, so they've got to have something there, right? And like you said, because Dash was a sponsor, they should be getting, you would think, some free stuff out of that.
Yeah, we had Chuck Williams, and then I would love to see the Ron Paul one too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I reached out to Chuck last week just to see what the status was for his presentation talk as well, and he basically reiterated the same as Ben just did, because the event itself was oversold. So Jeff Berwick, the owner of the event, did I think it was like $200 where you could live stream it, and I think now it's $100, and there's like an archive of the videos. And to Chuck's knowledge, he thinks that those videos are going to be released in the next couple of months. I believe what he told me that he heard. So I'm sure most of those videos will still be relevant in those talks. Yes, I would love to see the Ron Paul one as well. I heard, but out of all this, just based on Twitter, because I haven't seen any of the talks either, apart from what's popped up on YouTube, but that was just like user videos in the crowd. So they're not the greatest footage. But from what I saw on Twitter, it was Ben that brought the house down. Everyone was on their feet. It was like standing. Everyone was going crazy for you. So that's I saw pictures, but not videos. So based on Twitter alone, it seems like Ben really got the.
We had an enthusiastic crowd, and I think it was when you start to share the story of what we're doing. I think what surprised people, because there were people who came up to me and said, a lot of people who were fans who didn't know where I got and didn't know I was back. And there were some people who came to me and said, I've never heard of you. I didn't know who you were. And then I'm amazed by this story, right? This idea of what we're doing. Again, it's a lot bigger than just us. It's a lot bigger than Reality Check and Truth and Media. But to be the first ones to do it, I think it's almost like this paradigm shift for a lot of people saying, wow, we can decentralize a lot more than just financial systems.
Can I talk to you about a pain point? Because I don't want to pretend like everything's all
What,
rosy.
is he your doctor now?
Oh no, I would like to utilize Ben to his full potential because he's a high profile network individual, right? Because he's been in the media landscape, and one of the 2017 was a great year for people in cryptocurrency that were early adopters.
Yeah.
However, really our aim, and why I really appreciate your sponsorship, as well as some of the other recent ones with MMA and decentralizing media and all this sort of stuff, because it's bringing people outside the crypto bubble into cryptocurrency. So we've kind of been through the adoption phase in 2017, but to really hit this home, we need to start bringing these big merchants on board. Mm-hmm. So, like, for example, this week we saw Starbucks come out and they made a comment about perhaps integrating cryptocurrency, or the idea of it anyway. Yeah. So, like, if there's any way or any ideas that you have that can help really boost and drive merchant adoption within Dash, because it's the chicken and the egg problem, the users and the merchants. Mm-hmm. And I really feel what's going to separate, you know, the boys from the men is the people that really focus on utility and get merchants there. Is this something that you thought about, or do you think this is something you can potentially help us with? Well,
look, I think about it all the time. In fact, I was just talking to a guy today because we were getting some signage done. And I was explaining to him about crypto and what it is and Dash and what it is. And he was saying, well, would I be able to take this for my business? And how does that work? So we're having this conversation about what that looks like. And, you know, I think it really comes down to this. We live in a culture. You said chicken and egg, right? And I think the chicken and egg analogy works for a lot of things. And one of the things it works for is when does something become mainstream? When does something become cool to do and acceptable to do? And one of the times that happens is it because people see it in media? Is it because they see it when they, you know, see that image on TV, and they see it not just on the internet, but they see it on TV, or they see it, you know, in ads that run before movies? Or is it because they're now using it and they're reinforced by that, right? Chicken and egg thing. In my opinion, I believe that we are a society that, even although woke people, there's plenty of folks out there who are like, no, I'm too woke for that. I don't fall for that stuff. But you do fall for it. Not all of us, but most of us feel validation in the things that we believe because of what we see in media and what we see in advertising. And the more that we see it in these mainstream places, and all the folks out there who are Dash folks, who think you're woke, who think that you're not affected by that, every time you do see, like, for instance, you just mentioned, Mark, Starbucks, right? As soon as you get the idea that if Starbucks were now accepting Dash and you had Dash logos in Starbucks, you know all you woke people would take pictures of it on your phone and you'd share it, because it is validating the things that you know to be true. Even though you don't need Starbucks validation, you know that there's a lot of people out there who do. So in my mind, and again, where I'm coming from on the media side of it, is to continue to build out content, but to move that content more and more into mainstream spaces where people are comfortable, because then it validates the position they hold, and that validation then works back to the other side to adoption, and the adoption equals more validation. And so I think that one feeds into the other.
Yeah, speaking of that, well, I noticed that you just got added to Roku. Or that I don't know.
So we have a channel on Roku, but I mean, candidly, guys, one of the things that I really want to do, I want to keep, you know, obviously building out this content that we're doing with Reality Check, and what we're doing there online, because I think there's a huge value to it. But I really want to expand into longer format shows that can go into Netflix, that can go on to Amazon Prime, that we can get picked up by networks. I think there are ways to go that route, that if someone who is a Netflix watcher sees that content and connects with it, then all of a sudden it becomes real to them.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed. A lot of people don't understand the value of some of these media promotion type things, and a lot of people are like, well, we just so we have a logo, is that all we're paying for? And don't understand the background of it. And did you happen to see the Chael Sonnen proposal, or his appearance on the show last week?
I have not, no.
So he is one of the top MMA fighters in the world, or more importantly, was back in the day. And he was sort of the original Conor McGregor, in that he was the big loudmouth trash talk, and that everyone just got into the mainstream consciousness because he was such a personality. And he runs promotions as well, and he was discussing about how the point of doing all this is so when people see Dash, they think, what? Just to start that question of what is that? And then once you have that, you're willing to look for an answer. And then once you kind of know about it, that's the first big hurdle. And one thing I've noticed is so many people, everyone knows about Bitcoin. Everyone knows what that is. I walk in with a Bitcoin t-shirt in the elevator, and some old guy just says, "Oh, I know about that stock. That stock performed very well recently." And they have no clue what it is, but they know what it is. They know it. And so that's why, you see the big D logo right here. You just see, it's powered by Dash, and you see just all over the place. You see Mark wearing the shirt there. You see him wearing other shirts. Just the amount of crazy stuff you could see.
Yeah,
that really puts in people's consciousness. The biggest thing I've noticed has been the inflate media campaign on like some United and other flights. And I've been on 2 flights that had this, and it's one of those few things that hits Twitter really quickly. Is someone takes a picture, oh my gosh, there's a Dash ad playing in my headrest here on the airplane. And that really gets into people's minds, especially people that know what Dash is and cryptocurrency is. They didn't really pay attention to Dash, but they know what it is. And then they see it, and all of a sudden they start to think, maybe I should watch this one a little closer.
Right. Well, no, I think that's absolutely true. And it's funny that you say that, because every single person who I've talked to about Dash, you start the conversation with, do you know what Bitcoin is? And they're all, yeah, absolutely, I know what Bitcoin is. And as you said, they don't really know what Bitcoin is. They just know they've heard of Bitcoin, which again, because there's a validation of their knowledge of that. 2 or 3 years ago, they might have heard about Bitcoin, but there's nothing that registers in their mind. There's nothing that registers as that thing being either valuable or important to them. And so I think what we're seeing right now is with Dash is how do you get more adoption of it, because it is viewed as being another, not just another Bitcoin, and not even better than Bitcoin, but being recognized by itself as something, right? It has to become something. And the only way you're going to get there is, and let's face it, how did Bitcoin get there? Let me just ask you guys that. Instead of telling you, let me ask you, how did Bitcoin get that kind of recognition?
What do you think, Brian?
Silk Road. It kind of started with that, and there was a Gizmodo article. I think it was about Silk Road.
Well, I believe that a lot of the early adopters, and I think this is actually one of the biggest challenges that we have, and we often forget because we take it for granted, is that a lot of the early adopters were into things like precious metals. So they were already educated and understood about central banking, the Federal Reserve. So although there's a lot of mainstream media coverage in Bitcoin, and we talk about cryptocurrencies, a lot of people still look at it with a big question mark. But like where we've had that background in central banking, to the average Joe on the street, they're completely oblivious. Now, the financial crisis woke up a lot of people when they saw events happening in Cyprus, the bail-ins, taking money from people's accounts. Like, that was crazy. But still, a lot of people don't really understand the how and the why. They just see it like, wow, it's great potential. It's gone up in money. So a lot of these new millennials that come in at worship, I feel sorry for, because this generation, they don't even know what a saving account is. So no wonder they're looking to cryptocurrency. But I really think having that solid foundation, not just, I mean, I'm still an advocate for precious metals because I don't look at that as an investment. I see that as a safe haven. I'm protecting my wealth, right? So, yes. Yeah, chip in. So
I wasn't trying to cut you off. Yeah, I was just agreeing with you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like, but essentially, like, so precious metals, I believe I'm preserving. It's my preservation of wealth, right? And then I guess my cryptocurrencies, I would rather have my wealth in cryptocurrencies, because if I keep my money in a bank account, I'm losing out to inflation every year. It's essentially a stealth tax.
Yeah.
So like, just to try and explain that to my friends, but like most of my friends are from Civvy Street. They're electricians, they're plumbers, they're builders. So if I'm in the pub on a Friday night in the UK and I'm talking to them, if you start talking about central banking and stuff, they just glaze over. They're not interested. So it's effectively communicating this message. I know people always say like, wake up, waking people up to what's going on, but it's giving people that financial understanding of how this solution works, why it's here, and why you should be using it. And once people understand those 3 pillars, then the solution just sells itself, because it's that light bulb moment. Because once you use it, it's empowering yourself, and but it's getting that information out there and informing the public. That's the difficulty for mass adoption. That's the hurdle we need to overcome.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of us got into it, was the precious metal type stuff, the Federal Reserve. But I think the general public started hearing about the Silk Road thing. One thing I wanted to say about that, the in-flight media campaign, and why I like that so much, is that because, like Joel said, it does blow up on Twitter, but it's almost like people see it, they get excited. People just in crypto in general, it's almost like a win for the whole crypto team. They're like, oh wow, something crypto. It's not necessarily all about Dash, although it is, but they're just excited that, oh wow, crypto's in the the plane. It's happening. Basically, the Ron Paul, it's happening.
Yeah, and especially because the good thing about the in-flight media thing is pretty much everyone flies, and it's an extremely captive audience. It's not like in the background of some, it's not like on some sweaty dude's shorts as he's punching another guy. No disrespect to that at all, because true MMA fans will still get a lot out of that. But it's not like, you can't tune it out. You're sitting there and he hits you in the face, and you're just like, oh, what is Dash? If you never heard of crypto, you don't care. But then then you see something like, Reality Check powered by Dash, and you're like, was that thing I saw at the airplane before?
That's right.
And
That's
then
right.
all of a sudden people start asking, what is that thing that's power? Like I would not expect to see an airline ad next to the king of woke, right? And like the alternative media, like reporting like that level of thing. And if there's like a crossover, that's the thing that to me, one thing I've noticed with the millennial generation and generations below them as well has been this search of authenticity. Like, what's the original this? What's the old school that? What's real? What's the most individualized possible? What's the least fake and corporate thing possible? And so, to a certain extent, that's what crypto is it's something real and not something big and corporate. It's something authentic, and it's something that the corporations and the banks and the politicians were not telling them to embrace. It's something that they found through some Reddit thread, and all their other people are doing that. And so when they see someone like, for example, yourself with embracing this, then it seems like, oh wow, this is something cool. And then that's what gets those people on board. Now, the older generations, there's always a little bit more of a resistance, but they might be much more amenable to traditional things. Like, oh, I see it in an advertisement. I see it in an accepted here in my shop here. I saw it on the news, especially like the mainstream media type things. Like I've been able to send so many things over. And the other thing is specific user groups are attracted to different things. For example, the MMA world, and this is one reason I've been an advocate of Rory McDonald's sponsorship and then Chael Sonnen now is, I mean, for one thing, Chael Sonnen has almost 1 million followers on Twitter, so that's good enough as it is, a good reach. Wow. But also these people are household names in a tribe, right? And so all of a sudden you get this one tribe that they all know what this is, and all they have to do is if it crosses over into another world, like say you have an MMA fan who's like, oh, I remember Rory and now Chael, they're into this coin, and then they watch a Reality Check video, and then they're like, there you go, they're sold. Like already they make that entry. Or they watch Reality Check and they're into all that stuff, and then they're flying and then they see the connection there. Or they're into Reality Check and then they go to a crypto event and then they see the thing, or they go to a libertarian type conference and then they see that there's those connections. Many of those connections are possible. And it's funny because the MMA world, I'm getting a little long-winded here, but the MMA world already knows about Dash now, or the whole world will kind of have some awareness. Now the alternative media world is, I mean, you started a storm. Like within like this week, there's already Free Thought Project has a pre-proposal. We Are Change has a pre-proposal, and there's other people that have been talking behind the scenes as well. Just everyone is coming at the gates, and that's that. It's like the Venn diagram, right? You got the one group, and then you got the other group, and then the other group, and the other group, and then whenever they start to intersect is when you get users.
Right. Right. I think that's exactly where it heads, right? It becomes confirmation bias in a positive way, that people get that confirmation of, I've seen it. So it must be good. It must be more than just this one-off thing. So yeah, I think there's a huge value in it.
What do your numbers look like, Ben? Are they where you thought they would be? Are they more than you thought they would be?
So we're gonna pull in March. We'll have all the KPI for March. No, for February. Sorry, for February on March 7th, we'll have those for you guys, and we'll be putting them out on the forums and stuff. I got to look at some of them yesterday, and listen, it's been tough because one of the things that's happened already is it's taking time to get those algorithms back up again. Because when you're down for a year and then all of a sudden you come back, it's like you got to climb over these walls again. Having said that, I know that we're doing about 5 million video views already in the past month, and I know that our reach in terms of impressions on Twitter was 30 million on Twitter in February. So we've had some pretty strong numbers. And again, that's without the syndicators who are jumping on now. So I'm really excited when we get to the end of March of what that's going to look like, because we're talking about, we have 2 different entities that have come along that both have monthly reaches of video of 50 million people a month. And it's 2 different companies that have come to us and want to start running these. So when you start, compounding on top of those, and again, what's great about those is it's not just coming from one place. That content is now showing up this website and this site and this site and this site. It's all over the place. So again, it gives you that confirmation bias, but it also gives you a much broader audience than what we had before. So pretty excited about how the numbers are starting to shake out.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, your first video back on Facebook, looking at it now, it's 694,000 views. It's not too bad for one video for your first one back in, like, who else gets to take a year off? And then like a year is an eternity in the media cycle.
Long time.
But then just show back up and then I mean, that's more than a large chunk of Dash's video library's views combined. Just one video from someone who's been off the air for a while. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the numbers are going to get better, and they are going to get better. But I'm happy with them now. I mean, the fact that, again, we've been able to do as many video views as we have in just 30 days, it's pretty exciting. But again, the excitement for me is that I know that we're going to continue to pick up that speed. And if you look at the trending over the course, because obviously in media, that's the other thing you do, right? You're always looking at trends. Our trending from the start of the month to where we are now, it's climbing like crazy. So.
What's the craziest thing people have ever said about Dash since this new thing? I mean, I'm sure one thing about your audience is you have a lot of rational, sound, level-headed people, and you also have a lot of the opposite, I've noticed. Or it's a little bit some entertaining, colorful characters that come on. I've seen some people being like, what is this, and how have they bought Ben? Is he a robot? Is he a lizard? Right. Whatever, a bunch of weird stuff. What's the craziest thing that people have said about Dash in particular that you can remember?
About Dash, I've seen a few things about how Dash is a scam. Dash is, I think I had a bunch of those the other day since this new piece came out, the realization that Dash is a scam. And then, but beyond that, just all kinds of things like that I'm a clone, that I'm not actually the real Ben Swann, that I've been cloned, and that my clone is now shilling for a government-backed Dash. And it's like real crazy stuff. But, you get some of those people. But I'll tell you this, I have gotten far fewer people than I thought. I actually thought we were going to have a lot of people who would say, hey, I can't believe you've got this sponsor now, and that's a bad thing. I was expecting a lot of that. And a couple of interviews that I've done, I've talked about the fact that there are people who have said to me, do you even know who these people are and who's really behind this? And as I've told people, I don't know who they are. And that's the way I like it. That's the way I prefer it. So I think there's a huge positive there.
Well, that's an interesting thing is, for some people it's like an upside down thinking, especially with older generations. And it's just because the world is so radically different today than it was 50 years ago. And 50 years from now will be absolutely unrecognizable to anyone who has any gray hair in their head at that time, right? I mean, it's changing so fast. And one of the things is, to the older audience, do you know who's behind it? And your answer no is probably very terrifying. And at the same time, that you can see everyone's minute transactions on this great public ledger. That's freaky too. Like I've had people saying, is there any way to make crypto completely private? And not private as in like to where you can't see any transactions or any transaction data. And it's kind of like that's sort of missing the point. I mean, obviously, we all saw your Thursday reality check on crypto where you talk about radical transparency. Right. But it's funny because when you get to the younger generation, the opposite tends to be attractive. The fact that they don't know who's behind it means you're like, just like when your YouTube fans or whatever pumping up your views, you don't know, or you get random donations on your Patreon or through cryptocurrency. A lot of times you don't know who those people are, and rather than terrifying, that's a comfort. And then the opposite with, of course, blockchain technology is the fact that it's all out in the open means there isn't the Pentagon misplacing $6 trillion or whatever it was. It just whoops, we can't find it. We made some accounting errors. Like, no, it's like you can actually dig in. Any citizen journalist or just a random person can just look at the blockchain and just say, well, here's how this happened here and there. And, it's just so out there. It's a completely different world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously I quoted you a lot, Joel, in that piece, but the phrase that you had so I think brilliantly used and beautifully used, that trustlessness idea, and it's one that I plan to steal and use over and over and over again. Yeah, right?
Did not originate with me, that's for damn sure.
Okay, well, I mean, to me, it's just such a brilliant idea, right? Because I think when people, especially people who question it, like, is this thing real or not real? When you start to break it down, and that's why. And candidly, guys, I apologize. I have to jump off here, but
yeah, no problem.
But I just want to say this: that when we look at the concept of this is what this all comes down to. It all comes down to the opportunity for people to build into something that they can see, and they don't need to just simply trust it. When you explain it to people, I think they get it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, keep doing your work. Of course, we look forward to, I mean, myself and the other two amigos can definitely speak for ourselves when we look forward to your next iteration of your proposal. I really hope you keep getting funded so you can come, so my proposal doesn't go down in flames, to have you come speak at PorcFest at the end of June. But
thanks so much. I appreciate it.
The Porcupine Freedom Festival is going to be amazing. Mountains of New Hampshire. Most of us in this room here are going to be there. So it's going to be amazing. But
let's get it refunded. Re-up.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for sharing your limited time with us, Ben.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
thanks,
no problem.
Ben.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Woohoo.
Excellent.
Cool. So, yeah, I just want to add on to that. So let's get a few bits in from the news this week. So we have to remember that we was talking about mass adoption and people waking up and people seeing Bitcoin in the news. Well, we have to remember, looking at the news this week, that there are a lot of the bankers and big establishments that are, and even countries themselves, looking at cryptocurrency now. Just remember that Wall Street trades on profit, not morality, right? So what they say in public and what they do behind closed doors are two completely different things. So Goldman Sachs, for example, this week was quite interesting. They purchased, the Goldman Sachs backed Circle has bought the Poloniex exchange, and some people are saying this is a good thing. Some people are saying it's bad. Some people are saying, it's inevitable, right? At some point, there's going to have to be a marriage, right? Because they're going to have to switch over. So, or if they're using these startup backup funds that they're crowding as kind of like their umbrella things going underneath instead of using their proper names, but they're just really hedging themselves, putting their foot in the door. But then we're also seeing, like in the news today with Marshall Islands, they want to start doing their own cryptocurrency and legal tender. We know Venezuela, although it looks like their initial launch of their cryptocurrency it's kind of like fell flat on its face for whatever reasons. But yeah, transition is pain points, but there is a transition in place and it will happen. So we have to remember, of course, these dinosaur bankers are going to say one thing in public, but behind closed doors, we know they're doing different things because it's clear as day in the news, right? You can't escape this.
It's happening pretty quickly. Puerto Rico also, I read a really good article on Puerto Rico and how the crypto people are starting their own community there, kind of helping rebuild and escaping taxes for one. But they're going to use all that money they save in taxes. They're going to pour into Puerto Rico and build that thing up. And
what are they going to call it? Anarcho Rico?
There's very similar to that. I forget the name that they were using.
Man, taking the wind out of all my puns.
But like, it's all about the dinosaur tipping point.
Dinosaur money tipping point. Woo!
And you know, this is something we should really raise with Ben, because I'd love for him to do. Well, I'd really love to utilize him in the best way possible to try and drive merchant adoption, whether it's doing a tutorial or just showing the advantages of benefits for merchants, why to use cryptocurrency, because a lot of us are still dependent on the legacy media. Look at some people, and even in our community, are desperate for these Visa, MasterCard solutions that are still doomed to fail, because you're just on borrowed time until that one gets shut down, right? So we're just chasing our tail. So we need the ultimate solution. So the dinosaur tipping point is essential in what we want to achieve. So for those that don't know what the dinosaur tipping point is, when I say dinosaur, I'm talking about paper cash, dinosaur banks, dinosaur bankers. So the dinosaur tipping point is when cryptocurrency is valued more by its utility over dinosaur fiat trading pair price. So what that means is that the crypto market cap fiat valuations is actually a fake measurement of success. The true measurement should be measuring mass adoption of crypto used for its utility as a primary replacement to dinosaur fiat money. So when dinosaur fiat money becomes less valuable in terms of usefulness relative to cryptocurrency for goods and services, that's why we need to push and drive for merchants. So when we see like articles this week about Starbucks, like we see Amazon still playing around, but we don't know what's happening. eBay, right? eBay this week, that for the longest time, ever since their inception, they were dependent on PayPal, right? Until, they separated. But it was either at the beginning of this week or last week, they've dropped PayPal as their primary payment processor in exchange for ADEN, right? Right, and like they're one of the biggest POS solutions going, right? So and just to give you an idea why that's really interesting is sorry, it's ADEN, and ADEN is really interesting because when you look what their clients are, you're looking at Uber, interesting, right? People use this every day. Netflix uses them. Etsy, Shopify, LinkedIn, Booking.com, and now eBay as well. So I love Amazon to get around this thing. But what I'm saying is we're so close now to some of these bigger merchants adopting it. And it's actually the POS solutions that are going to help it. So us users, are looking at these Visa, MasterCard kind of solutions that we're still depending on that are doomed to fail at some point in the future, right? Because they're not long-term solutions. So I'm all about the dinosaur tipping point and what helps us get us over that finishing line. And the one thing that we need to really utilize is our DAO, our governance to push that. So
yeah, what's so interesting about all that you mentioned with that is, for one thing, I don't even know this payment processor you're talking about, and that's the funny thing is, I have barely used PayPal, and I didn't like it. I've not used Venmo, and I have not actually. I only heard about Venmo through comparisons to Dash. And then I've never used Apple Pay or Android Pay and things like that, and I'm just almost skeptical. Like I'm like the old guy who doesn't trust all these like new payment solutions. Like, what is this? Whatever happened to swiping your card kind of thing? Except now it's like you skip all that over. So the problem with all those innovations, people have always been looking for better ways to pay, right? But the problem with all those solutions is they're all tied down to the legacy banking system and fiat currency. And so there's only so much a PayPal or a Venmo or an ADN or whatever it is can innovate. They can only go so far because they're chained down to the fiat.
Where it's going to start, I think, is like Venezuela. That seems to be this was dinosaur tipping point. I think they may be the first. Most of us have seen that new proposal that the guy's going to onboard like 300 million people or something, and for $2 million in Venezuela. I haven't looked too deep into it, but it just seems like they're ripe to be taken over by crypto. It just seems like the time to strike right now.
There's two different ways of looking at it, right? You can either try and reinvent the wheel and fund or encourage people to create these POS solutions, and then go to every single merchant, small, medium, large business, and ask them to change their system, re-educate their staff, everything else. Or there's the other approach these big merchants with POS solution, say, for example, like Stripe, that have over 100,000 businesses already listed. And then you just say to them, just saying, look, there's a change happening, but we can integrate Dash into your system. So then your clients can still accept the legacy banking. However, they can also accept now Dash, and there's advantages and benefits of that. And you can save money and give your customers the freedom of choice. You don't need to re-educate your staff on how to use this solution. This is how you win. Guys, Joel says he wasn't familiar. I mean, most people aren't. Like, if you look at the top 10 most popular POS solutions that are used worldwide, I think one of them is called Bistro, right? Because they're used in the restaurant business. This is how you get mass adoption. You need to focus on the key players here. So, and why that's important, if you sit in a room and you're with the CEO of one of these POS solutions, you're saying, look around what's happening right now. You can integrate and be a part of it. What have you got to lose? What if we put in a proposal to cover the expenses of the development side? Nothing changes in your end. You're just given the option for the merchants and the customers to be able to use it. So you don't have to worry about it. You either wait and become obsolete, or you can take it's not even a risk, because if we're paying to develop it for you, you're actually getting ahead of the curve, right? So this is what we really, really need to push, because Dash can do this. Dash can afford this, but other cryptocurrencies can't yet. And now they're looking at governance and funding models now because they want to replicate, but we really need to push this hard.
That's one of the things that's unique about Dash is it's 100% crypto. It's like got all the same roots as the same person holding up the QR code for Mom Send Bitcoin, all that. It's got the exact same decentralized underpinnings, but it has the most normie user base and fan base possible, where you got and that's one of the things we see people very active on Reddit and other cryptocurrencies. And then the Dash Reddit, it's doing fine, but it's not nearly as energetic, and you don't see as much fandom, is because people have like other lives going on. They got normal stuff going on, and what people don't see is they just think, oh, I'm gonna just wait until this gets so big that I can just like shove it down people's throats. Be like, I'm gonna you should use this coin or whatever. And it's so much work for the average person. What if instead we just made it so that anyone can basically flip a switch and get their money in Dash instead, right? Which is already, there's a little setup, but it's already that anyone can get paid in Dash through their Bitwage Uphold integration. And then what happens if then anyone can pay at any merchant in Dash? And then someone gets tired of the US dollar, they can literally just change their browser settings, basically that simple. They can just go in their settings and be like, receive in Dash, here's my Dash username, and it goes to their Evolution account, and then that's their little wallet. And they just, when they go to pay, like at their little point of sale terminal anywhere, you just take in Dash. And then whatever business doesn't want to convert, they just, I'm going to keep some in Dash. And then just before you know it, everyone's using Dash. And then the flippening, right? The dinosaur money tipping point, it's like the collapse of the Soviet Union. It's not like, oh, it's going down any day now. It's just everything seems fine. And then just all of a sudden, hey, it's over.
Yeah, I
It's
think
just
we're due.
people broke down the wall, and there you go.
I think we're due for an update on Alt 36,
Yep,
General
I've been chasing 'em.
Bytes. Yeah, General Bytes as well. I think it's about time for them. And the Kodaks, I saw him pop up in the community again. Those are all three different point of sale solutions.
Well, I just want to say that what we need to appreciate is we always say how blockchain technology is a disruptive technology, but we also need to understand what's happening around us. Just in the UK alone, this week, we've had two really big chains franchises actually go into administration. Toys R Us, which I think you're probably familiar with, but also Maplin as well, which is a big electronics store here. Because what's happening now is that the high street shops are closing down, where people are preferring to shop online, right? Because it's a digital borderless world now. So they like to shop to Amazon and everything else. And that's why I mentioned Adyen, because they're so instrumental, because there'll be a lot of people watching this that use Netflix and, they pay for things, or shop, or Spotify for music and all sorts of things. Now, they don't know the back end of the POS solution that they're using, but they know those things just from going for paying for them. So, like, what I'm saying is, if the high street shops are closing down, business is actually moving online. Everything's going web-based. So that's why I think it's really important that we go after these players like Stripe or Adyen or whatever. And this is where Bradley, business dev, head business dev for Dash, builds a really solid team, because we need to sit down with these people and explain that, because it's not just us bringing them on board. There's advantages for them as well, because it gives. Don't forget, they're in their own field competing with other people as well. And it's normally the first person to make this jump that makes the difference. Now, this is why I raised the issue of Poloniex as well being purchased by Goldman Sachs, right? It'll be interesting to see what developments happen from that. Are they just hedging their position, or what we've seen in the past where whether it's futures trading, something else, it could be quite sinister, or it could be quite a good thing in terms of regulation, making it the norm, open up to everyone else. It's good, bad, everything else. But the problem is, you have to understand the bigger world that's going on, and everything's going online. If you're having a business now, you can't just focus on a US dollar business or a euro business. You want a web-based business that accepts everything. And that's why people go to these big players, because they've got hundreds of thousands of merchants already. And that's why I think sometimes, although I'm really appreciative of Festi, Alt 36, and these POS solutions that we're developing with Kodaks and stuff as well, but really, if you're doing that, you have to have such a strong team game, right? Going into all these different shops, bring them on. There's re-education. You try talking to business owners and getting them to spare 5 minutes just to talk to them, say, hey, can you get this new setup? Or you got to train the staff. It's a headache to them, right? Now, I know that because I hate Visa, MasterCard, right? That's why I like Dash. It's a Visa, MasterCard killer. But really, guys, if we really want to hit this home and we want to get mass adoption, yes, Dash Evolution is going to open up a lot of doors.
Let's start now
with the DAPI. But seriously, we need to have conversations with Stripe. And yes, they did used to accept Bitcoin, but I think they dropped it and whatever. But like, here's the thing. It's the daily things what people can pay for, whether it's their Uber, their Starbucks, buying stuff from Amazon, because I imagine most people do that, and then groceries. It's focusing on the things that people buy daily and use daily and depend on. And when they see cryptocurrency is being more of a focus on that, that's when you start to win. When people depend on goods and services and they're using that for cryptocurrency, and that they're seeing the benefits of that, and then also the merchant is as well as the user, that's when things happen. That's when it's going to get interesting.
Or when they need it for their weed.
Yes, well, this is what I mean. Like, I'm not even.
For some people, it's their. I mean, some people use it recreationally. Some people, it's also their daily medicine. So some people can't really sleep. They got pain. They got other things. Some people have anxiety problems. There's all kinds of reasons why people would depend on something like that. And if they need Dash for that, that's a big chunk of people's lives. And then what happens when they can spend like between weed and Amazon, right? If you could buy marijuana with Dash, and then you can buy stuff off of Amazon through Bitcart, and I know Bitcart's had some issues lately, but we'll hope they get it together eventually. Just those two things are a large chunk of people's lives if they can save money by using Dash, especially if they hang on to their Dash, and then it's going to be worth more in a little while. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, well, what if I can go out to eat at this one place I like to go to? What happens if I can go to movie tickets? What happens if I can refill my mobile phone, which is totally not a thing in the US for the most part, but everywhere else in the world, pretty much. What if I can do that instead? And bit by bit, duff by duff.
Yeah, we need gas cards. That's the only major thing is that
I got gas cards.
But dude, eventually we've got to look forward to the future. Eventually everything's going to be electric based, right? So we're going to have smart meters. That's what that NRAL thing is for. So like we are thinking ahead of the game, and there are things in motion. However, right, I know it's a big ask to get these big POS solutions. That's why bringing these people in at the moment, we've got Ben Swann, decentralizing the media using Dash, going for that target demographic. We've got the MMA fighters, right? We've got Alt 36 going after the cannabis industry, right? Now, here's the thing. There's a lot of industries that people don't like to talk about, but I think we should be going for them because it's going to help bring lots and lots of money. Brian's probably going to like this.
Aren't you?
Well, actually, I was going to say guns. So I was going to say
I like that part.
So Alt 36. So like weed, guns, and the adult industry. I mean, yes. They all have money issues, right? So we're actually solving a problem. The weed dispensary thing, it wasn't just targeted thing. There was a genuine need for it. Now, the adult industry, it's largely online, right? So there's so many problems that can solve. Guns as well. That's becoming heavily regulated, depending on what state you is. So there's a lot of things that we can do.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's a lot of people shy away, especially when you're trying to get the mainstream people on board. They shy away from these kinds of applications because it seems like, we want to be beyond, we want to expand past the Silk Road. However, I think it's a very important point that the reason why Bitcoin got so big is the Silk Road. And the reason why the Silk Road made Bitcoin so big is because it was the kind of stuff that Bitcoin enabled that other stuff couldn't. You can already buy your coffee. You can already pay for your rent. You can already do anything. But when these things, I mean, think about the big things people like to see in the cinema, right? They like sex, drugs, and violence. And so that's also the reason they do that. Go a little bit philosophical here. The reason they do that is because that's kind of taboo in society, and they want to experience it in a virtual way, vicariously through the people on the screen. But so those things are areas that get panned by the real world financial system. So firearms and combat sports really could use Dash immensely. Things like the legal cannabis industries we've seen also can leverage that. The adult industries also had all kinds of problems with that too. And those, I don't think that Dash Core Group Inc. needs to be doing anything with that. I mean, I don't think they need to make a statement against either, but Dash is good for a nice universal branding. But as far as actual users, whatever gets to users, if it doesn't work for those groups, it's no good, right?
Absolutely.
If you can't buy, assuming you can buy any of this stuff wherever you are anyway. I mean, it's not like we're legally applicable, but if you can't buy a gun with it, if you can't buy weed, if you can't pay an adult actress on a live stream, if you can't do whatever, then why do you need it? Like, what is it for? It's not important.
You can't. See, this was the thing. I don't even care if Core came out and said that, because if they did came out with a strong position and said, well, you can't do the adult industry because it will upset feminists. You can't do guns because it will upset people on the left. I would say that's bullshit. You need to wake up and smell the coffee. Because if you really want Dash, digital cash, to replace fiat money, you can't say Dash is money and then turn around and say it can't be used for certain things. That isn't how money works.
Well, it's how money works today, unfortunately. That's the power of Dash, though, is freedom for the world. And that's the thing. There's a lot of people out there whose actions and lifestyles I highly disagree with. However, I want even my enemies to be well off. I want people I don't like to have tools of freedom. it works for everyone or it works for nobody. Because if the first they came for the gun stores, then and I was silent because I wasn't a gun user. Then they came for the weed stores, and since I didn't toke, I was silent there too. Then they came for the adult film actresses, but I didn't care because I'm happily married or whatever. But then they came for me, and there's no one left to defend me.
All right. Now we talked about this on the Tuesday meeting, and I'd said the adult industry, and I'd said that not now is not necessarily the time, but I was very serious about that. That is a big industry we need to be looking at, but we also need to think it's and the reason that came up is because I was talking about that Operation Choke Point, which I guess is still going on. It was started, I think, under Obama, maybe even Bush, to where they targeted the cannabis industry, the gun industry, the adult film actresses and stuff. But also the adult entertainment stuff is not just pornography per se. I mean, it's these, they target the shops that sell all the stuff. And I mean, you're not going to upset, I don't think, feminists with that. It's because these shops sell all kinds of stuff that's like help people with, issues that they have, and they're being targeted. Their banks are being shut down. So maybe that could be an area that we could start. Maybe not the, adult film industry yet, but maybe on the lower level of these shops that sell all.
Or, for example, the streaming world. It's interesting because I've read a lot about how the adult industry in general has pioneered a lot of technology like HD movies and stuff like that. Just a lot of the more important media technology has been on the cutting or bleeding edge of that. And the same thing goes for streaming. How many people stream things these days? Like, for example, we're streaming live right now. How many people stream while they're watching? Our buddy Albert, he streams while he plays games, and he streams that live and has followers and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that stream.
Who watches TV anymore?
Yeah, no one watches TV anymore. They are the TV.
They're watching Ben Swann.
Yeah, I hope so. Unplug and get woke. You need a reality check. But anyway, so streaming, I would have posit that it got really hardened and, pardon the pun, but it really got developed through adult streamers and cam girls and things like that, and that's really what made the technology work. And then donation basis or subscriptions or things like that, and that's a much better, freer, more empowering way of living than being on the streets with a pimp. There's alternatives, and so you might need to judge people's lifestyles or whatever, but whichever the lifestyle, the more freedom and empowering tools they have, the better off they will be, and the better off society as a whole is. The more people have freedom to be prosperous on their own.
Yeah, the adult film industry, they've been disrupted because everything's free now. So I think crypto and a way to donate and stuff like that they're once again, it's another industry that's ripe for disruption with crypto, just because their industry suffered. And I don't know the specifics, but as far as the streaming and the cam girl type stuff, I don't know that it's legal to give them money per se. I know that a lot of these things operate on tokens, that you buy the tokens. I don't know, but crypto just seems like the obvious solution. And in my little research I have done, I was telling the guys, I did see one site that they were taking crypto, one of these cam things.
Was just research, right?
It's just totally research. It was
cool.
Well, funny enough, it is listed on Discover Dash today, but someone added this site of like very lifelike customizable sex dolls you can pay with Dash for. And at first it got added, and I was just like, "What the hell is this?" But then I had to go to the site, and they actually accepted Dash, so it's got to stay up there. It is a legit. Well, depends on your definition of legitimate, but it is a Dash accepting business, and they have a bunch of things like get a new head for your doll for 20% off. There's stuff in like Amsterdam. I don't know if it's Amsterdam or somewhere in Europe. I saw they literally have the government pays for there's like handicapped people
who, you know, they have different handicaps and stuff, and the government kind of pays for them to have, you know, sexual relations, and because it's just a mental health type thing, it's literally a medical thing.
So what if someone started a charity thing to pay with Dash to pay for adult services for people who are identified as a high risk of being a school shooter? Just throwing that crazy thing out there.
Yeah, it's a dark, dangerous road to go down with that one. I think that's going to split the audience. But you know, I'll say it again. Like some people will be like really offended and upset.
That will have to be a buzzword of ours from now on. I think that will split the audience whenever someone's saying something completely ridiculous.
Yeah, but you know, I'll just say it's simple. Like there'll be some people that don't like the weed. There'll be some people that don't like the gun aspect. There'll be some people that don't like the adult industry. But it's a fact of life. You can't sit here. You can scream at me till you're blue in the face, but you can't tell me Dash is money and then turn around and say it can't be used for certain things. That isn't how money works. So
I like all those things. I don't know. All those things.
But yeah, like so Dash rules everything around me, and we're gonna get there. And we're having a few teething problems with Dash Central. But hey, look at the last voting cycle. It was like 99.7% full of like allocated funding. Right, it was crazy.
I think it was over 100%, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, now it's gone down to 99.51%. I don't know how much that was before, after the voting deadline, but there's a lot of squeakers.
I don't think everybody's going to get in this time. I think a couple of people is going to get pushed out. I know I personally reached out to one person who they may or may not have, and we'll see if we can help them, because that's unfortunate that people, you know, how that turned out this time.
Total requested Dash. So the available Dash is what, 6,651.85. The total requested was 8,633. People are coming after them Ds.
Yeah, I was super busy in the last few weeks. So as I'm not a master owner, I wasn't actively looking at the proposals, because these last few voting cycles have been absolutely manic. But Joel said something to me, I think it was last week, that made me chuckle, because there were so many people competing for funding. Joel was just like, I said, there's no room left, right? I think they're most fully funded. It's like, because, well, I've never seen this before, but someone's changed the name of their proposal, saying like, master owners, so like, vote for my proposal. This is the only proposal that could be funded with the Dash left over. I'll show you.
It's our good friend CryptoLib, who's been, I guess, the first person to have very successful outreach in Africa.
Yep.
Shout out CryptoLib, love your work. And the continuation of Dash Roadshow, and then in all caps, this is the only proposal that the budget can still afford to fund.
That's hilarious.
I thought that was that was a baller move, and it pushed it into the winning category. You know, smart move. And it's also funny how there have been a few cycles in a row that it was under 50% of the budget was funded, and then this time around, it's just been like just scrapping for it. And I do think that that's the way it should be. What the sad part is, this sea of red. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. Wow. 14 did not pass.
Wow.
Let me, I'm just going to do the calculations here real quick of like how much money that is. But that's just a little bit of a sad thing of 14. I'd like to see the budget fought over, but maybe 1 or 2 that doesn't pass, because 14 is a lot.
That is a lot. I didn't realize that much. Are you sure that's how much it is? I didn't see that many.
Yeah. So that's 70 Dash, or $42,000 at the current rate, just got burned by people trying. And that's let me tell you, it's a rough one. It's a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, especially if you're from some sort of third world country.
Yeah, we should talk about Dash Central, because Brian, before we went on air, Brian was telling me there's been some updates to the website that apparently now only master owners are able to comment. I know I've been an advocate of that for quite some time, saying publicly that, you know, we've had problems with trolls and that sort of stuff, but also as well for master owners, with all these proposals now going through, it's more of being a master owner is a job within itself, having to look through and read all these proposals. So with all the extra unnecessary comments, it should just be master owner. So is there anything else new apart from that? There's the moderation still being handled, but
they're
hopefully...
able to, yeah, they're able to comment on the troll box thing. Everybody's able to comment in the troll box, and then somehow you can, I think you may be able to assign, if you're a master owner, you may be able to assign a couple of people that you trusted, people that can also comment, and then obviously the proposal owner.
Only master owners can comment presently, as well as a proposal owner, and then a certain trusted people. And that I'm a little bit unclear on who those trusted people might be, but basically it's just locking out, you know, big groups of people. And one thing that's going to be interesting is to see how much the dialogue improves. I'm sure it will. I'm sure it'll be bearable again, but I've noticed some problems that have gone beyond just trolls, that have been sometimes the way the masters themselves tend to deal with contractors, like asking questions that there's easy answers to, or being hostile, or, you know, there's a lot of shoot from the hip kind of stuff. And I know that CoinGun in particular, CoinGun in particular mentioned before that he got upset when people would shoot from the hip with the comments. They wouldn't take the time to think through the comment, think through what it was about, think through the proposal, read the whole proposal, and just say something like, I don't know, this seems like a lot of money, I think it's a waste, and not have any education behind that statement. And then, of course, you just say something like that can botch a business deal. If you're in a business deal or negotiation or something, and then someone says, all right, so we're going to do, it's just a YouTube show, I think that's too bad. No, that's a lot of money. And even if you come around in the end, you've already set the negotiation off on a wrong foot.
Yeah, I say that a lot about a lot of proposals. I say, man, this is expensive, but I'm going to go ahead and vote for it.
You're usually right, though.
Well, they're all overpriced. Most of them are overpriced. 90% of them are overpriced. But I usually say that, yes, it is overpriced, but I am going to vote for it anyways.
It's about creating a professional environment, because if master owners can't complain, bitch and moan. If you really want to attract high-level, high-profile, whether it's high-level integrations or high-profile media individuals to do proposals, we need to have decorum and maintain a professional atmosphere. Because if we have these proposals coming in and people just writing silly comments, it just damages us. If we really want the best, if we want to be the best we can be, we kind of have to create that environment. So I hope these new changes will foster better relationships with proposal owners and the comments from the masternode owners, because these last couple of proposal cycles, I've kind of, some things have been voted, some things haven't, and I'm kind of balancing the sentiment of master owners and engaging like what I think what things will be funded and what won't. Is my balance is kind of off at the moment. So like it's been a really interesting couple of months. So I just hope things just going to get better and stronger from here. And just like how the Gap proposal brought on Ben Swann, how Rory brought on Chael, and now we're seeing other people coming. We've got this whole snowball effect going on. So we're going to be bringing bigger and bigger and bigger people. So we need to keep improving. So it's not a bad thing. It's just saying, like, you know, we're constantly improving and putting in the measurements in place so we can keep advancing, pushing the movement forward. That's what it's all about.
Well, this month, Dash was a $4 million budget, right? $4 million funded going into funding various outreach activities, things like that. In the past, when the budget was $10 million worth, I think the highest it was ever. I think 4 million's been the limit so far. And so now you have them knocking on 4 million's door. Now, what happens if next cycle, if we get up to 5 or 6 million, will we be able to get all that funded? And then once we're pushing up against that limit over and over again, then what happens is the proposals, the quality starts to become denser. Right. Yep. It's not just, we're just going to throw a bunch of money at this big thing. It's like now the proposals that get through are going to have maybe be the same dollar amount, but squeeze more value out of it. Just squeeze more and more, compacted, and it'll just over time just grow until what happens when Dash gets the 10 million budget back again, except it's all being spent and it's all tight and well used. Woo, I can't even imagine. That's going to be pretty crazy.
That's excellent. I think a lot of us are wondering, we've funded so much stuff, so much exciting stuff is happening, but the price has been fairly stagnant. And what we've seen in the past is that until we actually release new software, new releases, that's what spurs the price. So we can do all kinds of marketing and have all these fancy people and stuff on, but until we actually release a product, the price is not gonna. It's just gonna stay. Yeah. So that's what we're waiting on now.
That's the fun thing though, is that's only a small piece of the puzzle, and that's one thing that. How high should the price of Dash be? It should be high enough to get stuff done, and to be able to fund the ecosystem. Really, that's it. And other than that, it needs to be stable, because the real prize is users. The real prize is everyone on board. Like, how many other, not trying to be too mean, but vaporware coins got into the top 10 or the top 5 or whatever market cap rankings, and then have no impact on the world. And then just using the Ben Swann example, this has changed the world in a very meaningful way. Just one proposal, and more than entire coins, more than most other entire coins. In fact, just Ben Swann.
Well, we should talk about the price a bit more, I think. And I think...
Can I sign off too first? Because I'm kind of triggered by those discussions. Always in the Dash Markets channel, you get people just... Like, I'm just so riding this wave of Dashy goodness, just like, oh, everything's amazing. Oh, look at this new person. Oh, we're getting more users. Venezuela's hundreds of businesses. I just got emailed this big spreadsheet of all the new businesses that they're taking. Oh my gosh, so great. Oh, look at this, look at that. I'm just so excited. And I go to that channel and everyone's just like,
I just wanted to remind Joel about our friendly bet. So for those that maybe new to the Free Amigos, I believe we've mentioned it before, but in this November last year, the start of November, me and Joel had a friendly bet that at that point in time, the hash rate was going crazy because of all the D3 miners, right? So there was lots of speculation. Anyway, the gist of the bet was that I won't say the amount that we bet, but it was to
please don't, because I forgot it. It was
so I got a screenshot.
Just that big anyway.
But yeah, basically it was for Dash to reach $1,000 by the end of March. So we're March now. March isn't over, but I just thought it'd be a good time to mention, because Dash has got to get to $1,000 right before the end of March. Or is that bet now void because of December's highs?
Well, that's the thing. It's
it was worded in a particular way.
It was just like, if by the end of the March it hasn't reached, I don't think is at that moment, but reached. So I'm pretty sure the language of it. Do you have the screenshot of the actual?
I do have the screenshot.
Yeah. All right, we'll have to handle it later. Either way, I don't care. Probably. Oh, let's hope.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I hope you win. Like, at the time, I was just like, dude, I hope you win. Like, I couldn't foresee like December's highs. I mean, that still blew me away.
The other bet, I have 2 other bets going on. Right, I need to start getting a spreadsheet just to keep track of these. The other one was with Albert, which is by the end of the year, Dash will have touched 10,000, and his bet was it will be 5,000. So if it's below 5,000, we both cry. But if it's 5,000 or above, but below 10,000, he gets something, and then I get something if it hits 10,000. And the third bet is with feed bans, which is he believes in like a couple months. I think it's within 3 months that Dash will be in the top 5 on CoinMarketCap, and then or top 5 or top 3. It was something like that. I'll look it up, and I was like, I was the naysayer in that case. So I am a little bit of a naysayer sometimes. But
what was Feedbands basing that on? Was that just based on like the hype for Dash Evolution, or just everything that's going on at the moment?
His ads, probably the Google stuff.
Yeah, his ads, and then Core just got past a 1.23 million, or at least that was the value at the time, marketing proposal. And so based on all that marketing, that's kind of the kind of what it was based on, is which I do agree with what Brian said, that unfortunately what prices crypto right now is dev hype. right? That's what moves the cryptocurrency markets, also known as, the price is.
And
Do you
greed,
do
speculation.
Yeah, but like no one just throws money into some coin and then just the ecosystem expands and the price goes up that much. Like, no, they need new blood, and the new food is dev updates. Oh, we're doing this new amazing thing. This release is going to be great. Or the release actually does come out and it is great, but it's all dev related or dev hype related.
Yeah, I would like to see more. To see more. Should have more dev hype. A couple of coins that subscribe or get emails from, they have like weekly updates. At first I thought, I don't know if we need weekly updates, but so many coins do it. It seems like just kind of a no-brainer. I don't know why we don't do it, because what's going to happen is if we don't have these constant updates and stuff like that, they say, oh, it's because of price stability. We don't want to hype the price. Well, when people figure out exactly what we're building here with Evolution, not just the stuff that's been announced, but some of the other stuff that has not been announced, the price is going to skyrocket. And that's the opposite of what they're wanting. But I think once people figure out what we're building, what's going on, it's literally going to have the opposite effect of what they're trying to prevent, is the hype. So it's just, I don't.
So you'd rather blow off some steam slow rather than just all at once and just destroy the world.
Yeah, well, there's so much. There's so much coming that we know about, and there's behind the scenes stuff coming that's just going to be really big, and it is going to just shoot the price up like crazy.
And we don't have the supply either, right? You always show me the charts, Brian, of the supply and the demand. Like, there's not a lot of Dash in the exchanges to buy. So if there's going to be like a mania, a frenzy to buy up all the Dash,
oh yeah,
it's going to cause mayhem.
Yeah, God forbid Coinbase adds Dash. I mean, it's over. We're going to the top 2 or 3 very quickly.
Yeah, well, unless Coinbase adds like 5, and then it's like
even then I think we're going up pretty quick.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is it's going to be a little bit of a rocket, and unfortunately, Dash had some big jumps last year, and that kind of. I understand what people are saying about not wanting to pump it too much, because it's like people go crazy. All these new people pour in. All these people are like, "Woo, moon, mark my words, whatever," and then it corrects as it should, because it's not real. It's not ready, and then people get really bummed out, and then they lose money, or then they leave, or just there's a lot of. It's a lot better to not have to yank people around, not have to, but wait. Just, it's better to have it organically. Now, unfortunately, this market it's never going to be smooth, right? It's going to be, I think we will have to rely on conversion systems that lock in a fiat currency valuation for trade for a while because price is going to be this is too emerging of an industry.
Yeah, there's stuff that's happening that I'm seeing that's not getting reported. I think we talked about it Tuesday, some of the newer people that have been added and where they come from. It's huge news. I don't know why it hasn't necessarily been reported, but yeah, the communication thing is still a bit of an issue. Hopefully they can figure that out. It's been so long. I know people are still clamoring for it.
Well, I thought Joel's update the other day, an interview with Ryan, was very telling. For a long time, it kind of seemed like Core didn't want to get involved in the escrow side of it, or were kind of distancing themselves. So some of those quotes in that, and if you haven't read it, go to dashforcenews.com now and go check it out. There's some great quotes by Ryan. Yeah, so I found that quite interesting. It'll be how many people take advantage of that and use Core to escrow. It's going to be interesting. It's still, I'm
gonna say that we should probably have a weekly update thing, like most of these other coins do, like a lot of them do. I mean, they don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it, but there's Salt. I get something from Salt all the time. I know 10x does. I'm not invested in 10x, but I know they do weekly updates. Plus they have like videos. You got all kinds. I think Ether.
I think of things visually, and when you're thinking about, for example, if you write an article, it's just a wall of text. you have spaces between the paragraphs that breaks it up for people's eyes so they don't just zone out. But if you have too many spaces, all of a sudden it's like there aren't any. Same thing with updates, right? There has to be found the perfect amount of updates that where people don't lose steam in between them. But if I would think that if they're too frequent, like for example, if they're a weekly update, I would get the impression that people would get bored of them, and weekly updates would be like no updates pretty soon.
I haven't gotten bored of the salt stuff. They just, it's basic information. It's not a whole lot of stuff. It's just basic information. I think Core could do it. How many, you know, so and so came on board this week. This is a progress on this. Just little stuff. I mean, right now it's basically Dash Force News is the updates. That's where you go to get your.
Well, maybe that's it. Dash Force News is the Dash ecosystem update, and then the developer update is once a month or something like that. And there's no right answer. There's something to be tweaked with to find out what the best thing is. Quarterly calls are pretty nice and big. The problem is, I think a quarter is a long time in this space. A quarter is like, it's everything happens in a quarter. And so they're good to have as like a big public, let's get everyone together. But I've been working on these monthly updates, and I have one scheduled for Monday. And supposedly I just was informed that most of the questions have been answered already, and they're waiting for like one or two more before they send the whole thing in. But I've been promised over the weekend that we'll get these for publication on Monday. And then it's time to start collecting questions so that the third week, 2 weeks before the end of February, submit them again, end of February thing. So then we got
that was really good, the last one we did. But some of the stuff can't be asking questions. Some of it's just like, hey, we don't even know to ask. Like, hey, this person's been onboarded. They're from this large company or whatever. We don't even know to ask some stuff. It's just a weekly.
Well, that's why it's very valuable to have core team members able to communicate. And people want the CEO of Dash Core Team, Ryan Taylor, or they want Evan Duffield, or they want just some big person there all the time they can just talk to. It's not going to happen. However, when you have people like Chuck Williams is great because he does so much that's not his job. His job is front end stuff, user experience, all that stuff. But he goes out and goes to conferences. He goes on podcasts. He tweets constantly about how all value is belief. I'm going to start parodying that because he says it too much. And you have Joshua who goes out and shows up in, for example, a Discord channel. He was in this chat earlier. Hey, Joshua, say something if you're still watching. But anyway, people that come in and talk to us, hey, yeah, we're working on this, or, oh, I'd like to be able to talk about that, or we get a little bit of sense of that. And that's where the bigger questions come from. And
nobody,
of course,
but not everybody found, if they had an email thing that was just a weekly update, just basic information, not too much to where people turn off, like you said, but just a weekly update would be nice. We got to wrap up.
Yeah, I just want to finish off by saying that next week we haven't secured a guest, but I would really like Chuck Williams to come on because there was a interview that Chuck did at Acapulco with the Crypto Show podcast. And at the end, he mentioned that there'll be, I think he said, Joshua was in the chat, so correct me if I'm wrong here, because I think Chuck actually mentioned you in the podcast as well, Joshua. But he's saying like they're working on towards the end of the summer, there'll be a full stack DevNet release of Evolution. So I want to get clarity on this because there's a lot of people that are clinging on to the June dateline from the roadmap. So if he mentioned there's going to be some kinds of demonstrations released as well coming up soon as well. So I would like to get a bit more grounding on this and just see what's going on. He mentioned about the copay wallets and stuff as well, having like a final release. Now after that, he can fully dedicate his time purely to Evolution. So hopefully Chuck will be up for coming on, and we can get more clarity on the matter.
Yes. So as always, we're here every Friday. Jump in the live chat, watch us. It's going to be great. We always do. I mean, and this depends on, obviously, these are participations. Sometimes it's just a couple of us holding down the fort till later. We do this thing called the after party in Discord. So If you're not in there, dashchat.org, and you get into the Dash Nation Discord channel, which I believe has over 3,000 members now. Was that it? It had grown pretty large, I remember. And you go in there, you just start asking, hey, after party, has anyone heard about the after party? It's just like a speakeasy type thing. It's very invitation only. There's no like after party link. You got to know someone. You start asking around and they plug you in. So it's just sort of like this format, except there's 10 slots and it's not scripted and it's not live. You just start chatting, and you can swear or whatever, say things that make Mark uncomfortable, or start screaming about dinosaur money tipping points and think about it and all that kind of stuff. There's it's a good time, and it sometimes lasts for like 6 hours straight with different people coming and going. So yeah, see you there, guys.
Cool. All right. So we signing off now? That's it. Okay, cool. See you guys next week. Stay dashy.
Stay dashy.